Hello everyone, the day has finally come. I have returned from that run-down hole in the ground those feds threw me in. They said something about me being a threat to national security. I don't fucking know, they sounded like a bunch of glowies anyway. Now that we've gotten that all cleared up, I'm pretty sure a good majority of you are aware that one of my favorite bands is Into Eternity. And for the sock-chewing retards that aren't, let me give you a quick refresher. Into Eternity is a melodic death metal act from Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. Formed in 1997, their style combines melodic death metal with prog and power metal aspects, which all come together to create a sound that is distinctly their own. They've made two of my favorite albums of all time, Buried in Oblivion and the focal point of today's video, The Sirens. However, if I were to outline one major issue with them, it would be consistency. Buried in Oblivion, for instance, is a fantastic album and I still absolutely adore it. However, the more you listen to it, the more you notice its flaws. And the album that followed it up, The Scattering of Ashes, while nowhere near being bad, lacked the emotion that Buried in Oblivion had on display. And I don't know, I just don't think that Stu Block, the vocalist that ended up replacing Chris Carl after his departure, was the best fit for Into Eternity, at least at the time. He's a talented vocalist, no doubt, but I don't know, there was something that was always off to me. He has an impressive range and he would always hit all the right notes, but at times his performance could feel a bit emotionless. And then there was the mess that was The Incurable Tragedy.
Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now.
We don't talk about it. Anyway, due to this lack of consistency, they never really got any better after reaching what was at the time their peak with Buried in Oblivion. However, that was until their 2018 record, The Sirens, which was released after a 10-year gap following The Incurable Tragedy's release in 2008. It would be the first album to feature new vocalist Amanda Kiernan, as well as the first to feature new drummer Brian Newberry, even though by this point, both of them had been in the band for a few years now. And these two additions are a great part of what makes The Sirens so great. For one, Amanda Kiernan is a great vocalist, with her vocals giving Into Eternity an edge that I feel they really needed, as well as carrying the emotion that I felt had been lacking after Buried in Oblivion. And this really helps with numbers like the confusingly named final track, The Scattering of Ashes. The worst thing I could honestly say about Amanda's vocals is that I prefer the original single version of Fukushima with Stu Block on it over her own. But even with that in mind, that has nothing to do with Amanda Kiernan giving a bad performance, as the album version of Fukushima is still fine. It's just I happen to prefer Stu's version a little more. But hey, here's to the one time I'll ever give Stu a W. Other than that, I think he's a bum. And as for Brian Newberry, while Into Eternity never had bad drum work, especially when Jim Austin was still in the band, I feel his drum work is by far the best Into Eternity has ever had. And while you could bitch about the drums being mixed a bit too loud, but they don't exactly overpower other elements like the vocals or guitars on this record, and for the most part, The Sirens has some decent production to it. In short,
It's metal, grow a dick!
and then you have guitarist and only remaining founding member of Into Eternity, Tim Roth. He's consistently been one of the best parts of the band, as I can't say there's ever been an Into Eternity song where I really disliked the guitar work, maybe with the exception of their self-titled debut. While he's always been a good guitarist in my opinion, his guitar work really takes a step up on this record, with it featuring some of his best riffs and melodies. And on top of this is also the album with Into Eternity's most complex songwriting. Now, while being complex doesn't inherently make something good, this is one of the cases where the album benefits from its longer, more complex songwriting. Also, while the songs are definitely longer than those on any Into Eternity record before it, none of them really drag on and feel sluggish in places. They are all really fun to listen to, and personally, I could listen to songs like The Sirens, Nowhere Near, and This Frozen Hell on repeat for hours. Also, there's the fact that this is by far Into Eternity's heaviest record. while that might not be much, considering the fact that the Sirens, when compared to music from other extreme metal acts, isn't exactly that heavy of a record, it's still nice to see them lean a bit more towards their mellow death side. Power and prog metal are and always will be two major aspects of their music, but I feel it's a bit more balanced here than on an album like, say, The Scattering of Ashes. Overall, it's just a fantastic album that takes all of Into Eternity's strengths from their previous records and improves upon them. It's a record that, while unique from their previous albums in a number of ways, still manages to distinctly sound like an Into Eternity record. And while it's Into Eternity's longest record, with it being 50 minutes, whereas most of Into Eternity's previous albums tended to be 42 to 45 minutes long, it is still for the most part a quick and enjoyable listen. In short, Into Eternity absolutely killed it with this album, and if you haven't listened to it, I cannot recommend it enough. And while they are both great albums, I have to give the Sirens a slight edge over Buried in Oblivion as Into Eternity's best album, given the various reasons I've outlined in this video. And with that out of the way, I'm gonna be taking my leave. It's time for yet another round with the local Skinwalker. Peace out, everyone.